Hello and welcome to the Post to Post podcast. It is March 18th, I think, the day after St. Patrick's Day.
It's where did I park my car day?
Yeah, we are in green to celebrate. Unfortunately, I did not release any video yesterday on Post to Post that was St. Patrick's Irish or green related, or really any video in general because I was busy doing other stuff, working on other projects. But we are here for the podcast, and this is our first hockey version of the podcast in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's been a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting storylines in the past 2 weeks, in the last week specifically. And you know what? We're close to the playoffs.
We're very close.
Some teams have 10 games left.
That's it. That's right.
And we'll discuss which of those teams later on. If you're new to the podcast, what we usually do is I make some notes, Brent makes some notes, we go through mine, we go through his, and sometimes we have off-topic conversations at the end of the podcast. I don't think we have anything off-topic lined up for the end of this.
Nothing lined up, but sometimes it just goes there.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with this podcast, then you know that I always talk about the streaks. I want to talk about the streaks first this time, if that's okay with you.
That's fine with me.
So
Totally fine.
The streaks are really interesting because I've stopped, I would not count a loss if they got a loser point, but from now on I'm going to count if they if you get a loser point, you lost. I don't care if you get a point, I'm still going to count it as a loss. So that kind of changes things as far as losing streaks. But on the winning side, we have Columbus at 7 games, 7-game winning streak, and that's huge because they're right on the brink of making the playoffs. They're in that last wildcard spot, I believe.
They're in the first one.
Oh, they must have passed New Jersey, did they?
New Jersey's only 1 point behind in the second one. Yep.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really, that 7-game winning streak is massive because Florida is right there with games in hand. These are games that Columbus needed to win, so that's big.
Yeah, Florida lost one of those games in hand last night.
Yes, they did.
Or yesterday afternoon. So that's devastating for Florida. That puts them 5 points out. That's going to be tough.
Are they really 5 points out?
5 points out now, yeah.
Wow. San Jose, 4-game winning streak. Washington, 4-game winning streak. Toronto, 4-game winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
The Devils, 3-game winning streak. Nashville, 3-game winning streak. Every other team has a 2-game winning streak or worse. So I only do the up to 3. On the losing side of things, do you know what team is on the longest losing streak at the moment?
I do.
Who is it?
The Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
9 games.
9 games. Detroit, you're not doing my Canadians any favors here. As a Canadians fan, I'm trying to get my team to get a good pick, and you're really not helping.
The whole point of tanking is that the other people don't tank, only you tank.
Yeah, exactly.
But if everyone's tanking, it's no fun.
Vancouver was 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's also not helping the Canadians pick situation.
No.
Dallas have lost 4 straight.
Yeah.
They've lost to Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and someone else on this road trip, I believe.
And this is so grim because they are literally hanging on to the last wild card spot with their fingernails. And there are a whole bunch of teams sitting there with 84 points, and one of those teams is not going to make the wild card.
Yeah.
And that might be Dallas right now.
It might be. St. Louis is right there, but St. Louis is struggling as well, although they've actually started to play a little bit better as of the past couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's close. And then Carolina has lost 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate because they were right on the brink of making it, and now I think they're 6 or 7 points back.
They're 11 points back.
11 points? They're 11 points back?
That's correct. They have 71 points, and the lowest wild card is 82.
Wow.
In New Jersey. So they're done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention, this is not hockey related. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll know that there's a significant quality difference to the previous podcasts, and that's because after 6 months of saving up Patreon contributions, we finally got the camera that we wanted. It's a camcorder. I've released an unboxing video of that on more Post to Post if you haven't seen it.
Right.
But this is going to be our dedicated camera from now on. It's solving so many issues. So a big, huge thank you to anyone who's contributed on Patreon. And if you plan on contributing to Patreon in the future, thank you in advance because these mics are the next upgrade. These are really cheap $30 mics from Amazon. and they don't have any limiters or anything like that. And
No.
your mic is like twice as the volume as mine. It's just
Yeah.
it's a bit of a mess. They sound okay for $30, but
And for $30, I'm quite impressed
Yeah.
with how good they do sound. But having worked with real professional equipment in the
Exactly.
past, it'd be nice to have something a little better.
Yeah, and two mics that are the same. Your mic is different than mine. I'm always changing your bass levels and stuff, and these arms, I'll just, like,
Yeah.
if I move it, you can hear that, and so
Yeah.
the upgrades will come slowly over time. But this is your guys' channel. I mean, I own the channel, but when I look at all these jerseys behind me, and if you're just listening, obviously you can't see this, but if you've watched any post-to-post videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. All these jerseys behind me, I don't see them as mine. I
No.
see them as theirs, because I feel like this is their channel. A lot of these jerseys were sent in by them, so it's really a community thing. So I don't even feel like that I own that camera, because it's part of Post to Post. It's part of
Yeah.
them. They did it. This is their channel, kind of thing. So
Yeah, we're just the
I'm just a facilitator.
custodians of the museum.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully the video quality increase will be something that's apparent to the viewer. I don't have a really good eye for this stuff, so I may not notice it as much as other people who have better color perception and things like that. But you've already said that you can notice right away how much better this camera is handling our lighting. And
Yeah, and the main upgrade is, well, there's two reasons. Number one, battery life. I don't have to worry about battery, because I can power that externally, so I don't have to worry about charging batteries or anything like that. Number two, I can record for longer than 30 minutes and not have to worry about the camera stopping like my DSLR did. So that means mail time videos can be as long as they need to be, without awkward cuts. Q&As can be as long as they need to be. If we have a great conversation, we don't have to worry about time. We can actually just focus on having the conversation, so that's huge. So
And this doesn't have to be filmed with a GoPro anymore.
exactly. So that's a big upgrade for the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, back to hockey.
Right.
As you can tell, we're not professionals. We're all over the place. So the teams that have 10 games left, which I mentioned earlier: Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Toronto, Columbus, the Rangers, Montreal, Minnesota, San Jose, Los Angeles, Dallas, Anaheim, Calgary, Chicago, and Vancouver all have only 10 games left. By the time you hear this, some of this will have changed, because we're filming this at 1:20 p.m. on a Sunday. This won't release until tonight, Sunday night. And some of you may not even listen to this until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's going to change a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty remarkable how close we are to the playoffs. Like, I can't even believe it almost. Like, I feel like the season just started. I remember talking about Derek Dorsett. That's his name, right? Yeah, that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
From Vancouver, and he got, this is at the beginning of the season. He got 11 goals in 6 games or something like that. And it was just great to see that happen to his career. And then a month later, he retired because of a concussion or something like that, or I can't remember what it was. But that seems like forever ago, but at the same time, it just feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's been a weird year, but it's really hard to believe that the playoffs are so close. And I'm very excited, because round 1 of the playoffs, in my personal opinion, is the most exciting round of the playoffs, because you get hockey back to back every single night. I love the Stanley Cup Finals, but sometimes you have to wait 2 or 3 days in between games, and it's frustrating. So
The first round is like drinking out of a fire hose.
yeah.
Like, it's just impossible to follow it all.
Yeah, it is.
It's great. It's on every channel. Up here in Canada, anyway, it's on every channel.
I just want to touch on the Calgary Flames really quickly. They have 81 points. They are, I think, 3 points out of a playoff spot, or at least they're 3 points out of being in a 5-way tie with LA, Dallas, Anaheim, and Colorado.
Yeah, my data says 4 points, but they have 80 points, and the others all have 84, according to this.
Let me guess, you got your stats from ESPN.
It's a link. I click it, and
No.
I haven't changed it yet.
What site?
ESPN, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's why.
So let's go check NHL.com.
Okay, sure. Go check NHL.com and see
we'll
if Calgary has more than 80 points.
And what if they do?
then I will tear up my standings, and I'll never go to ESPN again. I've already
You said
slagged
that-
them before.
You said that 3 times.
I know. I've slagged them before.
No, you're actually right. They have got 80 points.
Oh.
I wrote it down wrong. I was looking at St. Louis. All right, so they get 80 points or 4 points back.
One for the old man.
10 games left.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the teams that they are playing coming up.
Right.
And can you move your mic a little bit closer to your face? And they have 10 games left,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 of the 10 of those games are against playoff competitive teams.
Right.
They play Winnipeg, Vegas twice,
Ooh.
Columbus, who's on a 7-game winning streak,
Mm-hmm.
the Kings, San Jose, and Anaheim.
Wow.
That's, like, I don't want to say that Calgary's not going to make the playoffs, but it's looking like Calgary's not going to make the playoffs.
Well, if they do make the playoffs, they won't have much left for the first round. If they can win the games that they need to win, they're going to be bagged.
And it's looking like they're going to play a California team if they make it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how well Calgary plays in California, which is not good. So I really don't like Calgary's chances this year as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough to say because I really like Calgary. They're one of my preferred Canadian teams outside of Montreal. So that's tough. But you never know. Anything could happen.
Oh, yeah. 10 games is a lot.
Vasilevsky, have you heard what he said?
I have not heard what he said.
Vasilevsky has admitted to being tired.
Ooh.
So I have a question for you. Put yourself in the coach's shoes. And you just heard that your star goaltender, a Vezina candidate goalie, has admitted to being tired to the media
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks before the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
How do you react to that?
Who's the backup there?
Louis Domingue, I think.
Yeah, Domingue, right. I would sit him. I would sit him and say it's at his request. I'd send him to the beach.
Send him to the beach.
Yeah. And I would say, look, this is no secret. He's talked to the press about this. He's tired. We need him at his top from the first round of the playoffs on. We're already in. They're clinched. And let's sit him, and we'll play our second stringer and call the guy up from the AHL, and away we go.
No, they're not clinched yet, but
Well, they've got 100 points, right?
yeah, they're
They're not mathematically clinched, but they're realistically clinched.
exactly.
Yeah, the
But
only
they're
team
still-
that's mathematically clinched is Nashville with 104.
They're still fighting for home ice, though.
They are.
Toronto could go on a run and pass them if
Mhm.
Tampa struggled, and Tampa could mathematically drop to third, which is unlikely but possible.
Well, if I had a goalie who says he's tired, he's so tired that he says it in public.
Mm.
Like if he's saying that to the media, I'm sure that Cooper already knew that he was tired.
Hopefully.
Hopefully it won't be like people who work in the White House learning on Twitter about their jobs.
Yeah.
Hopefully Cooper will know that he's tired before the rest of the world does.
Mm.
And I would do a calculated guess. I would say, no, we're going to give him all the rest he wants, maybe bring him back for the last couple of games to make sure he's sharp,
Mhm.
and then give him like 8 games off. And we'll do what we can. We'll still try to win because they've got a lot of other assets. They can probably still win a few of those games.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree for the most part. Yeah, you got to rest him a little bit. He's played so hard this year.
Yeah.
In other news, did you know that Evgeny Malkin has passed Datsuk in points?
I did not.
Does it surprise you a little bit?
Not really.
It surprised me a little bit.
Did it?
He's so overshadowed by Crosby. Not a lot of people talk about Malkin on Pittsburgh, but he's got 921 points,
Wow.
and Datsuk has 918.
Hmm.
Datsuk has played 953 games. How many games do you think Malkin has played?
I would think it'd be over 1,000 by now, but I don't know.
774.
Wow, that's amazing.
He's
and,
done
and he's not been a chronically injured guy.
Not.
He hasn't missed a lot of time like Crosby has, like weeks on end.
He's missed some time.
Has he?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say as bad as Crosby. But he's missed some time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's passed Datsuk and played 80% of the games.
Wow.
Or 82 or 81% or whatever that is. I'm not good at math. But
And how old is Malkin now?
30, I think.
Something like that, yeah. So he's got some miles left.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And I mean, he's potentially in the Hart conversations this year, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very good.
Let's switch to the West. Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know their record recently? And by recently, I mean since, I don't know, beginning February 8th, we'll say.
Well, right now they're 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. They've actually been playing better than their seasons in the last little while. Yeah.
Since February 8th, they are 11-7. 11 wins and 7 losses, and some of those losses might be overtime. I didn't write those down.
Right.
So that's interesting because they know that they're not going anywhere this year. They probably knew that 15 games into the season. But the fact that they can end the year like this, I think is a really positive note for the year to come. And Buffalo's kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Buffalo's actually playing pretty good hockey recently.
They're playing quite good hockey.
And it's almost funny how once the pressure's off your shoulders and you don't really have expectations anymore, when you can actually start playing hockey and not worry about the emotional stuff.
It shows how much of performance in sport, and I'm sure it's not just hockey, but it shows how much that performance is above the neck as opposed to just raw athletic talent below the neck.
Especially goalies.
Yeah, you can have 2 games between 2 teams at different times of the year with the exact same talent on the ice both times, and the results are vastly different.
Absolutely. Look at Nashville at the beginning of last year to the end of last year.
Yeah, really.
It's night and day. So it's special to see. Like it's frustrating because Arizona's consistently in the dumps, but it gives you hope. Just a sliver of hope that maybe next year they can actually do it. Maybe next year Buffalo can actually turn it around, because on paper Buffalo's better than they perform. They've been that way for probably the last 5 years. They've always been better on paper than they are on ice. So I mean, if you think about the Buffalo fans, they must be so frustrated.
Well, they must be. When they hadn't beaten Chicago in 9 years or something, and they beat Chicago, I think it was yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
And they beat them quite handily. Like it wasn't a cliffhanger.
There are a lot of positive things to say about the Buffalo team. I would like to see some changes, obviously, but there's going to be a year coming up when Buffalo actually goes on a bit of a run and makes the playoffs, and it's going to be a fantastic story. It's going to be, I hope what Nashville did last year happens to Buffalo, where they maybe sneak in the playoffs. They're playing such good hockey, they actually do some damage in the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to that day. I'm not a Buffalo Sabres fan, but I love a good story.
Yeah, that's right.
And when Buffalo makes the playoffs next time, it's going to be a good story. So I'm excited for that.
Good. Yeah, very
and
good.
with Arizona as well, same thing goes.
Yeah, with Arizona, you have to wonder, though, some of these numbers may be skewed a little bit, because if Arizona is a destination for teams that are on the road and it's the second game of a back-to-back, a team is probably going to put their backup goalie into that game against Arizona.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right.
So there's going to be a little bit of skewing of the result because of the opposing team's calculations about maybe not taking Arizona seriously enough. And obviously that's a mistake, because Arizona is able to capitalize on those chances.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, yeah. Speaking of Buffalo, Arizona, Montreal, these teams that aren't going to make the playoffs, I've decided that I'm going to do a year in review video for every team. So every team's going to get its own video. As soon as the regular season is over, I'm going to do a lot of research, form my opinions, and every single team that's not in the playoffs, which is 15 teams, will get its own video. And they'll all release in rapid succession, probably 7 a day, for like 7 one day and 8 the next day. That's probably the goal, because when the season ends and the playoffs begin, I think it's like 3 or 4 days.
About that, yeah. The season
5
usually ends
days.
on a Sunday and the playoffs begin on a Wednesday or Thursday.
So I want to get all those videos out when the season ended quickly, because there's also 8 playoff series to preview videos for.
You better start drinking coffee.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to. So there's gonna be a lot of filming and stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
This is actually the last thing on my list.
Oh, man,
So
that's quick.
I mean, we're only 20 minutes in, but it's interesting. It's a bit of trivia for you, and that people like trivia, so I wanted to include that for that reason. So if you think about the top 10 active points players in the NHL, so the first one on the list is Joe Thornton with 1,427 points. We're only talking about active players.
Mm-hmm.
Of the top 10, how many do you think are Canadian? So I've already given you one. There's at least one Canadian, Joe Thornton.
Of the top 10 active players
Yeah.
with the highest number of games played.
No, points.
Points. Oh, I'm sorry. How many are Canadian?
Yeah.
I'm at a loss. I really am.
Okay, there's 5. That's the nationality with the most amount of people in the top 10.
I'm surprised it's even 5.
Really?
Yeah, I am these days.
How many U.S.-born players?
Oh, I think 3.
0.
What?
Yep, 0.
You're kidding.
How many Swedish players do you think?
2?
3.
A little closer anyway.
Russia with 2.
Wow. No Americans.
No Americans.
Because I guess I think back to Max Pacioretty, for instance, who, although he's not had a great year this year, overall, going back several years, he's put up some pretty good numbers.
He has, but yeah, he's nowhere near.
Wow.
I don't think he's anywhere near the top 10,
Well,
actually.
wow. Okay.
Now I have a trivia question for you, which is related to what we just talked about, but I'm going to put something on the line. I will buy you supper if you get this right.
Ooh. Wow. And like tonight?
Yeah,
At the place of my choosing?
whatever you want.
Man. You know where Sim's Corner is, do you?
No, but I'm sure it's not far. It's PEI.
Yeah, it's a steakhouse.
Oh, that sounds expensive.
Go ahead. I won't hose you if I win.
said there were 3 Swedish players.
Oh, man.
Can you name them?
So give me the category again. It's active players with the most points.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are Swedes.
Yeah. And they are in position 5, 6, and 7. Not that helps you at all, but
Okay, 2 of them are Sedins.
correct.
So I just have one to pick from.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, man.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't have any thinking music to play.
You can dub some in later.
Yeah.
You can dub the Jeopardy theme if they don't have it copyrighted. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Man.
You got 10 seconds.
Okay, not Sedins.
6 seconds.
The pressure.
3 seconds.
William Nylander. I know it's wrong.
Come on, what are you doing?
I know it's wrong.
Zetterberg.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You just missed out on a free
Man.
supper
Aw.
with a William Nylander guest who started his career as an NHL player like yesterday.
I knew that. I just couldn't think of another high-profile Swede at the moment. But Zetterberg clearly should have been in my mind, and I apologize.
All right, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself.
All right.
It's easy, but kind of not easy at the same time. There's the Canadian player that's in 10th place plays for the Dallas Stars. Who is that player?
Jamie Benn.
I knew you were going to say that. No, it's Jason Spezza.
Oh, damn.
887 points.
Wow.
So the list goes as follows. Thornton with 1427. Marleau with 1122.
Oh, wow.
Ovechkin with 1111. Only
Wow.
real close behind.
11 points behind Marleau.
Yeah.
And gaining quickly.
Crosby, 1104. Right
Holy
behind
smokes.
Ovechkin. Hendrik Sedin, 1063. Daniel Sedin, 1033. Zetterberg, 951. Malkin, 921. Stahl, 915. And Spezza, 887. So, interesting list.
A very interesting list. How has Spezza been doing in Dallas this year?
Not great.
No.
Not god awful, but not great.
Mm-hmm.
He's not worth his $7 million he's getting paid or whatever it is for the next. Actually, I don't know how long his contract is, but it's not worth $7 million.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Wow, interesting stat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I'll give you a chance next week or 2 weeks from now, I guess, to redeem yourself.
Tune in next time when Brent tries to win supper.
Do you have any trivia for me? I want to win supper.
Oh, man. You're springing this on
It
me.
doesn't have to be right now. I mean, like,
Oh,
if you
okay.
have anything in your notes here that we're going to talk about in the next 30 minutes.
I can't think of anything right now, but if something pops in, I'll
Sounds
interrupt
good.
the programming to
I
give
just-
you their trivia
I
question.
just really want supper. So.
All right. Well, you had an option for supper last night, homemade lasagna, and you turned it down.
No, I didn't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't got nothing left, so
All right.
So over to you.
Thank you. I don't know what to, no, I'm just kidding. First thing I want to talk about, and we haven't spoken about this. Did you stay up late last night to watch the para hockey gold medal game in Pyeongchang between Canada and the United States?
I stayed up late to edit a vlog from August when we flew over PEI, of August of last year.
I'll take that as a no.
But no, I didn't. I went
Okay.
to watch the game.
I watched it. I was disappointed that the game wasn't on broadcast television, but they did have it online on an internet feed on the web from CBC. So I watched it. And in fact, I took my Google Chromebook and loaded up the website there, ran the HDMI cable into the television in the main living room, and watched it on TV just like I would have had it been on the cable box. So I enjoyed the game. The interesting para hockey, they used to call it sledge hockey, but they call it para hockey now. They play 3 15-minute periods of stoppage time.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada scored early in the first period and had a 1-0 lead right until the last minute of the third when the Americans pulled the goalie
Mm-hmm.
and scored and tied it 1-1. And went to overtime, full-length overtime, but it didn't take very long. And the same guy
Oh, really?
for the American team scored the winning goal in overtime for the gold medal.
That's cool.
It was cool. It was a very interesting game to watch. I love watching these guys. They're fantastic.
It's when you think about it, you're like, not really interested in that. But then you watch 15 seconds of it,
That's all it takes.
and you're like, wow, this is actually fantastic.
It is fantastic. And if you've never seen sledge hockey,
Yeah.
it's for people who have basically profound mobility impairments from the hips down. So they might be missing limbs altogether. They could be double amputees above the knee. They could have both legs, but they're paralyzed, let's say.
Exactly.
And they all sit in a similar sled, which is really like sitting on a giant skate. It's one inline, kind of two blades, I guess, one in the front, one in the back. And they push themselves around with shortened hockey sticks that have a stick blade at one end and some sort of, I can't imagine it's a spike type thing that would hurt people if you hit them with it. But it's some way to grab the ice. And they use those to push themselves around. And they can skate and stick handle at the same time. And the speed is unbelievable that they can
fast.
attain. They're so fast because you got these two arms pumping away.
Yeah.
And they reconfigure the arena so that the boards are plexiglass because they're low profile when they're sitting in their sleds. So when they go into the bench or even in the penalty box, they're still able to watch the play because otherwise the boards would be over their eye level. And it's fantastic. It really is. It was great to watch. It's physical.
I was just gonna say,
my
the
God.
contact is like they're more physical than NHL players sometimes.
Open ice hits
Yeah.
are just brutal.
And they fight too.
I didn't see any fighting last night. There wasn't any of that, but they do.
I think the last time the Americans played the Canadians for the World Championships or something
I
over
think-
Christmas.
Yeah.
I think there was a fight at the end of the game because the Americans won that game as well.
And there was a tournament here in Charlottetown.
Maybe that was
Yeah,
it.
in early December. The
Yeah.
Americans won that tournament as well.
Yeah, that must be what I'm talking about.
It's fantastic to watch these guys go up and down the ice and play so well as a team together and pass the puck around and have set plays and the shots that they can get. Like they're all down low, of course, and they can get some amazing shots, and they're like top shelf, top corner.
Yeah, and they've got two sticks, and the blades are separated, so they'll stick handle underneath their sled.
Yeah, they'll
back
pass
and
to
forth.
themselves.
It's amazing.
It's really something.
Yeah, it's if you get the chance, please go watch it.
Yeah.
Even on YouTube, just highlights or something.
Yeah, it's really good hockey. But congratulations to Team USA.
Yes, congratulations.
Both teams were, I think, fairly evenly matched. If one team dominated possession, it probably was Canada, but not by a lot. And the Americans had some amazing chances. The Canadian goalie, and maybe to a lesser extent the American goalie, were fabulous. The Canadians were outshot in the game as a whole, and the Canadian goalie was amazing. So a lot of shots went wide. The most painful part of how Canada lost, though, I don't know if you know this part, but when the Americans pulled their goalie, one of Canada's players got a partial breakaway down the boards, and with about 40 seconds left, he hit the post
on
the empty net. And then the Americans came back up the other way and scored.
Wow.
So devastating on two fronts, right? But it was really good. Yeah, it was a great game to watch, and good for them. And that was the highlight finale for the Olympics, the Paralympics.
That's right, yeah.
And the closing ceremonies, I think, have already happened by now, so I didn't see them. But, yeah. Some interesting things I read on The Athletic this week, and I wanted to focus the rest of my program time on that. And the first one, I think we can deal with it quickly, but it was an article about Mark Borowiecki.
Right.
And I don't profess to be very good at pronouncing his name. I've heard it pronounced several different ways.
How do you say it?
Borowiecki.
Okay, yeah, that's about right, I think.
That's as good as I can do. But he's always been known as a guy who will drop the gloves pretty quickly, and really that is almost certainly how he got into the NHL in the first place. He's not known for his hands or for his skating ability. He's an agitator to a point, but he's a tough guy, and he has been in a lot of fights in the past. And he had a bad concussion back in the fall, missed some time. And while he was out, and even after he came back, he did some soul searching, and he spoke with his wife. And this is an article in The Athletic about this, so I'm not letting on that I know him. But Chris Stevenson wrote an article this past week in The Athletic that goes through Mark Borowiecki's thinking process about how he has changed his mind about the kind of hockey player he wants to be from this point on. And in the past, he would probably just getting ready for a face-off. He'd make arrangements with other players. You want to go? Yeah, let's go. And now he's going to say no. He's not saying he'll never fight. If someone comes up and, in the moment, he might drop the gloves and give someone a good pounding or get one.
If they deserve it, he'll fight.
If they deserve it, yeah. But the staged, and I don't think there's that much of it these days, but there's some where they'll yak back and forth getting ready for the face-off, and before they even have normal body contact, the gloves are on the ice and they're whacking away at each other. He's not going to do that anymore because he's worried about his health, and that's the main thing. It's not just that he wants to change the kind of player he is. He's scared about brain injury, and he's already had some concussion.
That's you mentioned his wife.
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversation that definitely should happen with a wife or a family member because it affects you after you leave the game. So it's good that he was willing to even talk about it with his family and with his wife or whatever, and not bottle it up or ignore it, as I'm sure a lot of guys do. So kudos to him.
And I'm reading between the lines here. You know how important this is to him because in the fourth paragraph of Chris Stevenson's article, on an off day in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, he sat on a rock and turned his face to the sunshine and talked on the phone with his wife, Tara, for an hour, turning over and over the thought that had been going through his mind since his return to playing. If you're in Las Vegas and you're talking to your wife on the phone for an hour, that's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. But between the two of them, they did talk it out. In all seriousness, they talked it out. And he's also, and this happened even before his most recent serious injury, he was improving his skills. He was getting better at his hands. He's actually this is the best offensive year he's had. He's got 3 goals, I think, this year so far, and maybe have 15 assists or something like that.
He's got 10 points. 10
points altogether. 7 assists.
3 goals, 7 assists.
And what's his penalty minutes? You have it there.
58.
Yeah.
It says basically if he's played 41 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points, 58 penalty minutes. The year that he got his most points, which was, let me see, 2014, 2015, he had 11 points in 63 games with 107 penalty minutes.
Yeah, I think this article, points per games played.
Significant change.
It is.
Yeah.
And he is one of only 2 defensemen, I think, that are more than. I'll try to find the exact stat. It took me a second to understand it. But yeah, on the possession front, he's broken into positive territory in unblocked shot attempts at 50.14%. One of 2 current defensemen, along with Erik Karlsson, to be north of 50%.
That's some Corsi stuff.
Yeah, stuff that's way over my head. But good for him. Good for him that he's, with a lot of players like that, you wonder if they can make it as players as opposed to the role player. And I hope he's able to, in the next few years. I don't know what's his contract like.
I don't know, I can check right now. He's
Mhm.
still relatively young. He's 28.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see him play in Summerside
We
earlier
did,
this year.
yeah. He played with
Yeah.
in the Kraft Hockeyville game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully he's got some time left to hone his game.
He is making 1.1 million this year, 1.2 million next year, and he's a UFA at the end of 1920. So he's got 2 years on his contract left after
Mhm.
this, which is good. Gives him some time.
Gives him some time to showcase other skills he can bring to the table
Yeah, definitely.
before this contract is up. I hope it works out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And that was one thing I wanted to raise. Sorry. The other thing, and I almost raised it when you were talking about Calgary at the very beginning of the show today,
Mm-hmm.
about what their challenges are in the next 10 games. There's another article about Gulutzan, the coach, Glenn Gulutzan, having a bit of a blow-up this week. Did you read about that or hear about it?
No.
Yeah, on Monday, there's about a minute and 30-second video of him just during a regular practice taken from board level. And you can't hear him all the time because he sometimes turns his back and as he's talking. He doesn't throw his stick up into the stands this time.
Ah.
But he drops several bombs of the F variety. In fact, in a minute and a half, he drops 22 F-bombs.
What?
22. When he's trying to tell the players what he wants them to do in practice and where he wants them to go and how he wants them to play and do breakouts and things like that.
You must be talking about a Trailer Park Boys episode, right?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm talking about the National Hockey League. And Glenn Gulutzan, he just goes to town.
I remember when Mike Yeo did it, when he was with Minnesota. Do you remember that? It was at the beginning of last year, I think.
Vaguely, yeah.
And he just lost his mind. There are words that I want to use that I can't because this is going on iTunes and you can't swear on iTunes.
Sure.
And I don't swear on the channel anyway, but he absolutely lost it. I'm sure there's people out there listening and watching that will remember this. But, like, he's a pretty fair-skinned guy. Not that day. He was the color of that scarf there wrapped around your mic.
The Manchester United scarf. He's pretty
He was riled up.
pretty florid, as they would say.
So how did the players react?
It's interesting. I can't tell from watching the video how they reacted, but the article that I read by Justin Bourne in The Athletic suggests that, and I don't know if it's this case specifically, but that generally it's at the level of the NHL, when the coach does things like this, it's impossible for all the players to take it seriously, because in most cases, the players are making 4, 5, 10 times as much money as the coach.
Mm-hmm.
His job is a lot more in jeopardy than theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it raises the question as to whether these outbursts are not just calculated, I'm really mad kind of moments. And I think there's something to be said for that.
If you look at last year, he did the same thing after a loss to Montreal in January, I think. And the team went on an incredible run after that.
Mhm.
Made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll have the same effect this year, but if he sees that it worked once last year.
Maybe. But the throwing the stick up into the stands, I don't know how the team played in the 2 or 3 weeks after that, before that wore off. But,
Yeah.
they obviously were in the playoff picture until really earlier this week.
And they still are.
Mathematically, they still are.
But they just have so many tough games to play. Like
yeah.
Anaheim, San Jose, LA, like all those teams are in their same division,
Mhm.
all with basically all the same points.
Yeah.
And you still have to play Vegas twice. You got to play Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a tough schedule. Even if they go on a run and win those games, it's going to be such hard hockey to play. It's going to be like playing a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Those 7 games are going to be playoff games.
Yeah.
And if you make the playoffs, well, then you got to jump into an even harder series against a team. They're going to be tired, even if they make the playoffs. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think if Calgary gets in, I'd want to be the team that plays them.
Absolutely, especially a California team.
Yeah. Justin Bourne writes this: the whole, quote, look how mad I am, unquote, thing is easily one of the worst parts of hockey culture. In a sport where you play a ton of games over the course of a season and you practice just as many times and you travel together and eat together and spend your lives together, having to pretend to be angry because your team lost X amount of hours ago is a fruitless exercise. The second you get to your hotel room with your roommate, no matter who that teammate is, the shtick is over and the mask drops. It's over. Want to watch Friends? Friends is funny. That Gunther sure is weird. And really, how much of it is for the media, for the fans, for the refs? And I spoke about this in one of my rant videos earlier this week about the 10 things I would change, 10 of the things. There's more than 10. And one of them is this propensity of coaches and players these days to react poorly to referees and calls.
Yeah, I think some people interpreted that to being players chirping each other. That's not what it was about.
Oh, no. Players chirping each other is hilarious.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
amazing.
I love that.
It's about the respect and disrespect towards the referees.
Completely.
So.
Yeah. Oh, I hope they didn't. I'm surprised they misunderstand it that way.
I explained it in a reply, but I don't know if they even saw it.
Yeah. It is the internet.
It is the internet, yeah.
Yeah, so people can take things a little sideways.
Yeah.
But no, it's the Tortorellas and Claude Julien's and whoever it might be behind the bench who get hollering at the refs when they don't like a call, and you can read every word of their lips even if you're not a lip reader, and it's all bad. And it's disrespectful. I'm not saying that you should quietly take everything that's done. There's ways to signal your displeasure without being an idiot about it. And that's really all it is. But not chirping. Chirping's great.
Yeah.
Mic all the players and mic them all, because I want to hear the chirping. That's my favorite part.
I remember there was I don't even remember who was playing. New York versus someone. And it was an established player. And some other guy was chirping him on the opposing team, someone who was basically no one. And the Rangers player just responded like, "Buddy, you're irrelevant out here. You are literally irrelevant on this ice." Like, and it was so like it wasn't most of the time it's just swearing and stuff. But this was so like intellectual because it was 100% truthful.
Well, and that's one thing with the NHL. You need to develop your own chops and your own credibility before you dare chirp somebody else. And that was the big knock on PK Subban early on. And there's a few other rookies who come into the league with this big personality, and they don't want to wait the time you're supposed to wait before you can really chirp and egg on the more senior guys. And if you start doing that a little too early, they'll just laugh at you. Or worse.
But that's what PK wants.
That's what he wants. And now he's been around the league for 8 years or whatever it is, and he can chirp away, and that's fine. But when you first get in the league, it's like, who are you? You don't have the right to chirp me.
Yeah.
I've been here for 12 years, and I'm a so-and-so, and you're just a punk.
He's an emotional genius.
Oh, yeah.
Like last year during the playoffs when he said that he said that Crosby said that his breath smelled bad or something like that.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they're going on with Listerine. He admitted this year that Crosby never said that, and he was just playing mind games with the media and with Crosby on the opposing side. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, the last main thing I have is my list of topics today. Also comes from The Athletic, which I will recommend anytime. It's a great place to put a few dollars to get exceptional sports content, not just about hockey. But Pierre LeBrun, of course. You've seen him on news shows and sportscasts. He's a very frequent contributor to The Athletic, and he decided to poll the general managers this past week in advance of their meetings that are coming up. The GMs have meetings, 3 days of meetings coming up very soon, imminently. And he asked them which ones of them would be receptive to a reformatting of the NHL playoff structure.
Okay, where's this going?
Well, it can go many different ways. But basically, this would be to increase the number of teams that have a chance at the playoffs. That's the bottom line.
How would that work?
It would work in the method that he floated to the GMs. The top 6 teams in each conference would be locked in. But the bottom 2, which are now wild cards, would actually be the bottom several who would all play in a round-robin 3-game thing to see which of those teams got in as the top 2 of that grouping to become the 2 wild cards. So it would be 7, 8, 9, and 10, let's say, in each conference.
So we'd have to wait a period of time in between the season ending and the actual playoffs starting.
Exactly. It would take maybe 4 or 5 days to play all these games and decide who's who. Some GMs reacted favorably to that situation as it was, but some would say, well, if you changed it a bit, I might agree to it. But But in that format, I wouldn't agree to it. They'd rather have maybe, if, let's say the top, like team 7 and 8, the top of the group that isn't in the top 6, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If they're so far ahead of the other teams, like 10 points or more ahead of all the other teams chasing them, then don't do it. That year,
So
just don't do it.
There would be conditions.
Yeah, there would be conditions. You'd have to be within 10 points or within 5 points of the teams ahead of you to get into this playoff situation, this preliminary playoff.
What about if it happened in the East, but in the West it was tight? It was between those 4 teams, and then those 4 teams had to play this round robin.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'd be more tired than all the other teams in the playoffs.
Well, they would be, and that's actually part of the price you pay for getting in. If you want in the playoffs, you might have to play your way in, and when you do, you're going to be tired because the team you're going to face when you do get in is going to have a nice long rest.
So I guess it would create more of an incentive to be in the top 6.
Yeah, that's right. A more incentive. And also encourages teams that are 10th, 11th, and 12th to play like bandits to get into that 10th spot so they can get into the preliminary playoff.
I don't mind it, but when does it stop?
Well,
Like,
one of the, and I was, when I first saw the headline, I said, no, 16's enough. That's it. 16. But if you go back to when the NHL only had 24 teams, let's say,
mm-hmm.
several years ago, they had 16 going in the playoffs.
Like I wouldn't mind it. My problem is the format itself of the playoffs. Just cut the crap with this divisional stuff and the wild card stuff.
I'm getting to that.
Like, can one please play 8 and 2 please play 7?
Exactly.
And I don't care if 7 of those teams are from the Atlantic Division,
mm-hmm.
and only one's from the Metro. I don't care. The best should go in the playoffs. I don't care what division you're from.
Yep.
It's about the best.
Right on. I totally agree.
Good.
Well, there. I'm glad you approve. No, I totally agree with that. In fact, a lot of the GMs did too. A lot of the GMs said, "I'd go with your system, Pierre, if it went back to 1v8, 2v7,
Yeah, definitely.
3v6, and 4v5." And I'm totally on board with that myself, because there should be something good about finishing first.
Absolutely.
And when you finish second, you should play the 7th best team, not the 3rd best team.
Well, look at the Atlantic right now. The top 3 Atlantic teams have more points than any Metropolitan team as of 3 days ago.
Which I never would have guessed at the beginning of the season.
Well, look at last year.
Yeah.
It was literally the opposite. The top
exact
3
opposite.
Metro teams had more points than any Atlantic team.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
The lowest of the top 3 in the Atlantic right now is Toronto with 93 points.
Mm-hmm.
The highest in the Metro right now is Washington with 89.
89, yeah.
Excuse me.
So Washington would technically be 4th in the standings and play 5th place, which would be Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I believe. Would they? That's right? Yeah, they play Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, Washington would play actually a wild card team right now.
no, but if it was 1v8 though,
Oh yeah, 1v8 for sure. Yeah, sorry.
Washington would play Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Tampa would play New Jersey,
Tampa would play New Jersey right now. Yeah,
and Boston would play Columbus.
Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah.
Toronto would play
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. I don't know why they. I understand it. I understand the divisions for travel purposes, but for standings reasons, just end it.
Yeah,
Like, let's go back. And even when we go back, it's still a little different because I think there was different division stuff. I don't even remember, but anyways.
Yep. So as of Tuesday night this past week, you had 29 answers from 31 GMs. Of the 29, 20 voted yes to his system.
Wow.
20. 6 voted no right out of the gate. 2 had mixed responses, and 1 GM said, I'm not going to say. And interestingly, the GMs that are already in the playoffs right now, or look like they're going to be, their answers weren't really different from GMs that are far out of the playoffs. So it didn't seem to be a self-interested vote. It was just a principled vote based on how they'd like things to be.
I think that's really important as for the NHL as a whole to have GMs in the position with that mentality and not be influenced by current situational.
Yeah. And like one GM said, okay, how about teams 8 and 9 play each other in a 1-game playoff? So that allows one more team in. Like some of the GMs came back with, I'd support it more if you did this or you did that. So they wanted to tinker with LeBrun's suggested model. But that was he just threw it in there as a suggestion.
So it has shades of football a little bit.
And in a 32-team league, let's say you do the 6 to 10 thing, the 6 to 10 preliminary playoff, you'd have 20 teams out of 32, figuring you get Seattle in here eventually. You'd have 20 teams out of the 32 with a chance of getting in the playoffs. It would build more interest in some of the lower teams later in the season to keep pushing. It would increase fan interest, rivalry interest, or whatever it would be. And it would drive up money, it would drive up ad revenue, and of course be good for the business part. Despite all of those good things for business, Bettman is like, no. Right now, he's not even looking at it.
Yeah.
And I understand that. He built he built largely what's there now.
He's done a lot of good things that people don't give him credit for, like myself. But he's done so many weaselly things that has created his reputation. So, what else you got?
Well, there's some GMs that like the idea of a single play-in, one game only for teams 8 and 9. Other GMs wanted a best of 3. That could just be number 8 versus number 9, or also include 7 versus 10, or whatever. One GM even added the wrinkle that perhaps there should be a point range. In other words, that 10-point gap. If they're more than 10 points back, they didn't earn the way in, so frig them. We'll just cancel it this year, or whatever. One GM pointed out that in his mind, the play-in round would keep the races close and would set lines, which create more interest. There's a benefit to finishing 6th rather than 7th to avoid the best of 3 playoff. Likewise, there's an interest from the 11th place team to keep fighting to the last game in hopes of reaching the number 10 spot, and so on and so on.
I like it in a way, but I don't think it's the right answer or the right decision. But I'd be interested in seeing it happen for 1 year, an experimental year, just to see how it would go, and then make a final decision on the future of the platform.
And I really think 1v8, 2v7, that can happen anyway without this.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's do that now.
I can't believe that we're still in this divisional crap.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been done yet.
And it hasn't been mathematically too out of range yet. But the day will come when a team is in 3rd place in one of the divisions and they're below the wild card.
Yeah.
It may happen yet this year, maybe. But
I think it almost happened the other year.
Yeah. And that will be, I think, a stark example of how stupid this is. When a team that in the conference wouldn't make it is making it just because they're in a weak division.
Actually, it might have happened last year.
It might have happened
Toronto.
already. It might have happened already because,
I feel like Toronto had less points than the wildcard teams last year. But anyways, it's definitely happened. I just don't remember exactly when. And it's stupid. It is. It doesn't make any sense. It's just there's too much of a priority and focus on this divisional stuff.
Yeah. Like, to be finishing 2nd and your first round opponent is a team that maybe tied you in the points or finished only 1 point behind you in the whole conference. Like, that's just wrong. It's just wrong. When normally you'd be playing the 7th place team.
Yeah.
In any sensible arrangement. So there. Where?
I would just have a final question for you, real quick, if you don't mind. It's about John Tavares.
Okay.
Do you think the Islanders not doing anything at the trade deadline was good or bad for John Tavares?
I think it was bad for John Tavares.
I think it was too.
I think it was bad for the Islanders. It was their opportunity to show John Tavares that they were going to start loading the team with talent to work with him, and they didn't do that.
And I'm not saying Snow didn't try to make deals happen.
We don't know.
But I don't know if he publicly said that he did or didn't. I don't know if he publicly released a statement after the trade deadline. I'm sure he did. I didn't see it.
I didn't either.
I know a lot of people want him gone. Like there are fans buying billboards and putting them up that says Snow must go.
Oh no.
So they really want him gone.
Yeah.
And I can't, I want John Tavares to stay on the island just so the fans don't have to go through the potential riots that will happen if he leaves. Obviously, they're not going to physically riot, but there will be a lot of hatred towards the the management of that team if John Tavares does not sign.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty devastating.
At the very least, they're going to have to show that they made John Tavares an offer that was worthwhile accepting.
Mm-hmm.
We saw what happened in Montreal when Radulov went to Dallas. Montreal tried to say at the end of it, well, our offer was just as good as theirs. That won't be enough in Long Island. It won't be enough.
No.
The Islanders will have to show that their offer was better than the other teams that he might have gone to.
He's not going to take a hometown discount.
No, he is not. And he shouldn't have to.
This is the one time in his career that he's going to get paid big. And this is such a crucial decision for him because he wants to win the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he cares about the most. And if he doesn't think it can happen on the island, then he's not going to stay.
That's right.
So as much as he loves the island, he wants to win a cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where he goes if he goes anywhere.
There will be all kinds of...
Every team in the league's going to make an offer.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Every team.
He'll sit down with his agent, and there'll be a stack of files on the agent's desk that will take a long time to go through. And some of them are going to look very attractive.
Oh, absolutely.
Very attractive.
I suspect Colorado is going to make a huge push for Tavares.
Wow.
I got a sneaky suspicion. Gut feeling. I dreamt about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there.
Yeah, I had a dream he went to Colorado.
Well, I guess that's it.
Maybe it was a premonition. We'll find out.
You heard it here first.
We'll find out in 5
Tavares
months.
to Colorado. Neil had a premonition. Next time you have a dream, try to figure out what the lottery numbers for next week are.
Oh, well, I had a dream last night that I was being chased by a bear in like a jungle kind of area, but it was outside of like a stadium, and I was trying to come up with new lyrics for a cover of a Keith Urban song that had to do with a mascot for a new sports franchise.
While you're being chased?
While I was being chased by a bear.
You're trying to write a song in your head.
Yeah, I was like singing, and I was a really good singer. I could actually sing. It was amazing. And then I woke up, I'm like, oh man, I can't sing.
Did you hear about the 2 guys that were fishing? And they're standing and they have their hip waders on and they're out halfway out in the river up to their thighs in water and they're fishing away. And all of a sudden this bear appears over the...
Is this a joke or a true story?
It's definitely a true story. And this bear appears and one guy just panics. He starts to go crazy. He's splashing all around. He's trying to get back to the shore so he can get his hip waders off and get his sneakers on so he can get out of there. And the other guy calmly walks back and undoes his hip waders and, calmly puts on his sneakers. And the other guy's panicking. He's breathing hard. He said, man, hurry up, get your sneakers tied. You'll never outrun that bear. He says, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you.
Okay, yeah. I was hoping it was going to be a better joke than that because I've heard that 15 times from you. So.
Oh, well.
And not from you, but from other people. But
yeah, and I didn't tell it very well either. I'm sure the joke is way funnier if it's told properly.
Do you have any other jokes? Because you're a man who always has a joke on.
I'm usually like plug and play.
Yeah.
Push me between the eyes and the forehead, and I can usually tell a joke.
Can you
call.
rattle one off?
Well, I just did.
No, like an actual
a good
joke.
Oh man, give me a second.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, take your time.
You can talk about something else for a minute.
I got nothing to talk about.
Talk about all your Patreon love or something.
Patreon members, I love you. The vlog that I was talking about earlier, the flying one from August, that will be posted on More Post to Post. I think today. It'll probably already be released by the time you see or listen to this.
Oh, good.
It was an hour-long flight over PEI, and I condensed it into 5 minutes and 43 seconds. It was a challenge because I had my 6D, my main camera, had the G7X, my vlogging camera, if you want to call it that. Had a GoPro on my head, had a GoPro in the cockpit looking back at us, and I had a GoPro on the wing of the plane looking down. So over the span of an hour, I had all this footage to go through and sync it up in the right amount of timeline, and it took 5 hours to do. So I'm pleased with the result, but it could have been way better. But all right, you got a joke yet?
I don't.
Oh, come on.
I'm really trying. One of my problems, ladies and gentlemen, is that the vast majority of my jokes are not appropriate for the iTunes platform.
See, that's my problem. I can't tell
Yeah.
any jokes because mine are extremely inappropriate.
And when people ask me to tell jokes, and they do, because sometimes when I'm on my game, I can do a pretty good joke. But I have to ask them, do you want a clean one? Because it'll take a little longer for me to think one up.
Mhm.
And that's what's happening to me as we speak right now.
I have a joke, but it's such a long joke, and I'm so bad at telling stories, and I'm so bad at telling jokes. It's
gotta
just
go.
it's not worth it.
You got to do
You've
it.
already heard it as well.
Well, yeah, but this is not for me. Go
It's
for it.
oh,
Come on.
okay. So it's kind of a Canadian joke because it involves Newfies. So it's
People from Newfoundland, you mean?
yeah, people from Newfoundland, and people from Newfoundland. If there's anyone listening, we actually love you. Like
Oh, yeah.
we tell Newfie jokes not to make fun of them, but because we actually like everyone from Newfoundland. It's a wonderful province, and the people are lovely. But anyway, there's 3 guys. One's an Asian guy, one is a white guy, and one's a Newfie. And they're all construction workers on a high-rise. And they're sitting at the top. You know, in the old photos in like the 20s when
Yeah,
the workers...
Rockefeller Center,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
all
yeah.
out on a girder with their lunch bucket.
Yeah, so they're all sitting there having their lunch, and the Asian guy opens up his bag, and he looks at a sandwich, and he says, "Oh, man, tuna? I don't want tuna. If I get tuna one more time, I'm going to jump off of this girder, or this beam, or whatever." And then the white guy sitting next to him opens up his bag. "Oh, ketchup sandwich? I want a ketchup sandwich. If I get this one more time, I'm going to jump off this beam." And then the Newfie opens up his bag. "Peanut butter? I don't want a peanut butter sandwich. If I get this one more time, if my wife makes this for me one more time, I'm going to jump off this beam." So the next day comes. They're back having their lunch on the same beam. The Asian guy opens up his sandwich. And it's not tuna, it's something else. He says, "Oh, thank goodness." The white guy opens up his lunch. And it's not ketchup, it's something else. He's like, "Oh, thank goodness." And the Newfie opens up his lunch. And it's peanut butter. He's like, "Oh, peanut butter again?" And he jumps off and kills himself. The next day, the police went to go talk to all the wives about the sandwiches that they made for their husbands. So the police went to the guy from Newfoundland's home to talk to his wife. And she was like, "What are you talking about? He makes his own lunch. He makes his own sandwiches." That's the joke.
We apologize in advance.
That's the. I told you, I'm not good at telling jokes, and the only inappropriate joke that I do know, which you just heard, is not good. So
Yeah, I guess you're not good at picking jokes either. Well, I'll tell one that doesn't involve anyone's race or ethnicity or location.
It wasn't racist. I just had to choose like 3 different people. So
I have this one where a guy comes home unexpectedly at lunchtime to his apartment, and he lives in a high-rise. And he opens the door, and he walks in, and his wife is there, as she should be, as she normally would be, because she's working at home, or whatever it is she does. And she's all out of breath and kind of flushed, and she's appears to be straightening up her clothing and stuff like that. And he is not an overly suspicious guy, but he's wondering, like, what's this all about? So he puts the questions to her, and he's not happy with the answers. Like, doesn't look him in the eye, and she looks very nervous. So he starts looking around the house. And he starts looking under beds and in closets, looking for a guy, the purported possible lover. And his wife is telling him to stop. There's no one here. There's nothing wrong. And he looks under the beds. He looks in the closet. He looks in the bathroom, pulls the shower curtain. And the more he looks and no results, he's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. He goes over to the window in the big living room and opens it from the 20th floor. And he starts huffing furniture out the window. He picks up the couch, and out goes the couch. And he picks up the chair, and out goes the chair. And he throws the coffee table. Then he throws the dining room table. And he goes over to the fridge, and he unplugs the fridge, and he rolls it across, and he puts it up on its edge, and he pushes the fridge out And just then he feels this gigantic pain in his chest. And the next thing he knows, he's in heaven, standing in line at the pearly gates, St. Peter. And he's standing there like, oh my goodness, I must have had a heart attack or something. And he said, man, I guess I really lost my mind there. And it was too bad because there was obviously no one in the apartment. So he's trying to make conversation while he's in line. There's a guy behind him. Well, no, a guy just in front of him, actually. He says, how'd you get here? And the guy says, I have no idea. The last thing I remember, I was hiding in this fridge. Anyway, so that's my joke.
That's pretty good.
Oh, dear.
I actually like that one.
Yeah.
I could kind of see where it was going, but yeah.
I apologize.
No, it was good. It was way better than mine and way less offensive.
Yeah, like you'll probably get some commentary from...
I needed a way to differentiate the people.
Yeah, but it didn't have to be a white guy.
Well,
because
it could have been anyone.
Oh, there's a Newfoundlander and a white guy. Like Newfoundlanders are a different shade of people.
No, I just meant like a... You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but it's not what you said.
Anyway,
it's all in good fun, folks. So,
yes, definitely.
And okay, I'll tell one that actually impacts on us.
Sure.
All right, because we're of Scottish heritage for the most part. Scots people are known to be very tight with their money. Put it that way. Very miserly.
Shyster.
No, shyster would ripping off other people and stuff like that. So more of a miser. A miser is someone who's just keeps all his money.
Okay.
But he doesn't keep other people's money, just his own. So one day in this church, let's say somewhere in the United States, they get to the point where they pass the collection plate around. And how churches work is they get their money through donations from people who go to services. So they pass this plate around. People put... Sometimes it's cash money or coins. Sometimes it's a check in an envelope or whatever it might be. So the plate circulates all throughout the church and comes back up. And then the pastor or the minister will bless the donations, to further the work of the Lord or whatever it might be. So this one day, the preacher looked down and saw some 5s and some 20s and a few envelopes and a couple of dollar bills or whatever. And he looks down and he sees 3 pennies in the plate. And he thought, I'll make a joke here. So he says to the congregation, he says, I see we must have a Scotsman in the church with us today. And this voice comes from the back, aye, 3. So there.
Yeah. We make fun of ourselves probably more than
I hope so.
Than anyone else. So
Yeah.
it's literally all in good fun.
Yeah, that's the only way these jokes really work well is if you're willing to take the heat yourself and tell the joke yourself before someone else can do it on you.
Yeah, we done Canadian accents all the time on this channel.
Yeah.
So we make fun of ourselves more than anyone else, and all in good fun. So.
Yeah, and Newfoundland is it's gorgeous. You haven't been to Newfoundland yet. But
No,
I've been there
haven't.
several times, and it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
If you guys want to see how amazing Newfoundlanders are, go on YouTube and search Newfoundland Airport Kitchen Party. Now, a kitchen party in Newfoundland is basically exactly what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a party in the kitchen, but everyone plays music, sings along. And in this specific video that you'll probably find as the first result, there was a delay in an airport flying back from their vacation or something like that? Or?
Yeah, it was at Pearson in Toronto, I think.
It was in
Pearson Airport. And it was a flight destined for Newfoundland, and
Mhm.
it was going to be late or canceled altogether because
Something
of
like
weather.
that. Yeah. And there was just a whole bunch of Newfoundlanders stranded in the airport.
Yeah, they're all sitting there in the departure lounge waiting for their flight to St. John's and decided to make the best of it.
Yeah, so they just started playing music, and it's an incredible video, and the music is great. That is the perfect example of how Newfoundlanders are,
Mhm.
and they're just so warm, so kind, and just love to have a good time. So
And there's a lot of British and Irish tradition in Newfoundland.
yeah, lots of Irish. For
Lots
sure.
of Irish. In fact, St. Patrick's Day in Newfoundland is a provincial holiday.
Yeah,
Everyone just takes the day off. Schools close, everything.
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and they do it up.
They get liquored.
Yeah, Newfoundlanders are known for their ability to have a good time.
Yeah.
And they have a great time. Another great story that also involves an airport is after 9/11.
Oh yes.
Or actually during 9/11, not really after, but there were a whole bunch of planes in the air that day, many of them coming across the ocean, and the FAA decided to shut down the airspace altogether because they couldn't tell which planes were safe and which ones were dangerous.
Mhm.
Thankfully, none of the others were hijacked, but they didn't know that at the time, so they shut down U.S. airspace. And every plane in the air was ordered to land at the nearest available airport. And Gander, Newfoundland used to be a very busy international airport because back in the days when airplanes couldn't carry enough fuel, they weren't efficient enough to fly all the way across the ocean, they would often stop in Gander for fuel and then take off again and go the rest of the way on their journey. So Gander was a massive airport, but not a very big town. Like the locals were a few thousand people, but the airport was the size of JFK. It really, and I'm not exaggerating there, it was huge. At least the runway surfaces were huge. So when 9/11 began and they started closing down the airspace, a dozen or 18 or a whole bunch of these big, heavy passenger jets that were coming across the Atlantic, destined for New York, Washington, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, they had to land at the nearest decent-sized available airport, and that was Gander. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of passengers landed in Gander that day, and Gander didn't have enough hotel rooms, they didn't have enough facilities, food, anything like that to house these people. But the locals all converted a local, I think it was a hockey arena, into a reception center. They had cots, they had beds, they made food, they entertained people, they brought them into their houses for the most part. People, oh yeah, come on in, you got a family of 5, you can stay at our place.
Yeah.
You can stay in our room and we'll sleep in the couch. And it was unbelievable. And they were there, they were several days before they were allowed to leave. So they were stranded in a way, but loved every minute of it. And several of the American passengers who were treated so nicely in Gander, they've started up scholarships for school children at Gander. They've gone back to visit. They've raised money to help the community out because the community was just so loving and so great to them. And the Broadway musical Come From Away was written about that, and I think it's still playing in New York.
Oh.
And it tells the story in an entertaining musical sense of all the things that happened that day. Like they all woke up that morning, Buddy's driving the school bus, dropping the kids off, and then by the end of the day, he's using that school bus to take people from all over the world to a hockey rink.
Yeah, they do anything for anyone.
They're fantastic.
They treat people like family.
Yeah.
And
Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949.
Yeah.
Prior to that, they were an independent, separate colony. And Canada was instantly much better when that happened.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I definitely want to visit it sometime soon.
It's
a
fantastic.
beautiful. They have a park there. It's called
Grossmorn.
Grossmorn, yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
And you've been to Cape Breton. You've posted some nice Instagram photos from your trip to Cape
Heck
Breton
yeah,
last
personal
year.
selfish shout out. Go follow me on Instagram, NEILTAYLOR. Two R's at the end.
And you'll find when you get to Grossmorn, and it's actually on the western side of Newfoundland. So if you went to Sydney, Cape Breton, and took the ferry, it's only a few hours north of the ferry that you're in Grossmorn. Even though St. John's, which is on the eastern end of the island, is hours and hours and hours away. It's a long car trip, dodging a lot of moose. Grossmorn is fairly close by, just north of Corner Brook.
It's beautiful.
It's unbelievable. I've been there.
You almost feel like you're in a different country from the pictures that I've seen.
Sometimes even a different planet.
Like it looks like New Zealand or something.
Yeah, there's some rock fields that look like the moon.
Yeah.
Almost. It's really tremendous.
That's why they call it The Rock. So.
The Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that wraps up this podcast. We're coming up on about an hour and 15 minutes, so it's pretty good.
Time flies.
If you're offended by any of those jokes, I apologize, but hopefully not.
If you're disappointed because the jokes weren't very good, I apologize too.
So thanks for listening on iTunes or Google Play. Thanks for watching on YouTube if you are. Hope you can subscribe if you're new. Hope you can like the video if you liked it. And once again, thank you so much to the Patreon members for contributing over the past 6 months. And if you plan on contributing on Patreon coming up in the upcoming months, we really appreciate that as well. And your contributions will definitely be going into the channel for upgrades for everything that we do here. So I really appreciate everyone listening, and hope everyone's having a good day. And hope you all are watching a lot of hockey. So we'll see you in the next podcast. Adios.